So our trainer for the day is known as George Gitonga Kairithia. He's a social studies expert, an author, and an experienced teacher for many years. He holds a Bachelor of Arts, Education Arts from the University of Nairobi. Gitonga is also a head of institution and a principal of a public day and boarding junior school in Kenya. He has contributed and authored with Oxford University Press on CBC and authored in our Lives Today social studies books, grade 5 and 6. And our social studies course book is known as Evolving World, grade 7, 8, and 9, all that have been approved by KICD. He's also an editorial advisor for our atlases, known as 360 Degrees. We have one in primary and another one that caters for junior school. He's also an astute digital content creator for social studies at Oxford University Press. And you get to interact more with George as we continue with the session today. Thank you for all those who are joining us a bit later. We had already done some introductions, so allow us to move on and allow the trainer to take it up from here and take us through the session. Please put in your questions in the Q&A chat box so that we leave the other chat box for any comments or answers we'll be giving to the training for the day. So for any questions you have for the trainer, put them in the Q&A chat box. We'll read them out at the end of the session. George, you're welcome.
Thank you so much, Susan. Let me share my presentation first. Is it working from your side?
Yes, just need to put it on slideshow.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. My name is George Gitonga, and I'll be carrying you through the effective teaching of social studies in primary and junior schools in Kenya. I think the introduction was enough. So because we have a lot to cover, I'll go directly to what I have prepared for you. It's an interactive session that we are going to share and make social studies more effective in our schools. So I will start by giving you the highlight of what you are going to cover. Effective teaching of social studies in primary and junior school. And my presentation is prepared in 3 slides. The first one is the overview of we will cover the overview of the revised social studies curriculum. Then we do effective methods in teaching of social studies. And finally, we'll look at something on the assessment of the social studies in junior school and the primary schools. So we can go to slide 1. Susan, is it got lost? Just a minute. Susan, are you getting my presentation?
Yes, it's clear. It's clear. And
it's clear.
Clear. Yes. You can move on.
Oh, there is something that had happened. I can't see it here. Just a minute. Let me share again.
Okay.
Are you able to see it there?
Yes. We can see
it. I can't see it on my screen.
Okay.
Expand it a little bit. Why is it not showing? Let me stop sharing it. Let me restart.
Just share fresh. Yeah, just share fresh.
Okay, let me share fresh.
Okay.
There it is.
Yes, we are good.
Very good. Is it there?
Yes, put it on slideshow and we are good to go. Thank you.
Thank you. It's getting lost again. Share that. Why is it getting lost? There's something is happening. Oh, it's there. So let's go to the introduction. And I'll start by giving you a simple introduction. And in Kenya, every teacher knows that we have the new CBC, the competence-based curriculum, that emphasizes on developing specific skills and attitudes. So in my introduction, I'll go straight to the few changes that were introduced. The first one is what they call the grade is now a standard or a form We have curriculum design now, what used to be the syllabus. We have a learning area of using learning area in meaning the subject, the learning outcomes, what you used to call the lesson objective. A strand is what used to be a topic. Then a substrand is what used to be a subtopic in the 844 system. So let's go to number one, the overview of revised social studies curriculum. And in this overview, the learning areas in social studies, they endeavor to nurture and engage an environmentally aware citizen. And then the competence that will be acquired by the learners, they will be upskilled because social studies is a spiral subject. It is built from simple to complex as the children moves on with the grades. The other primary purpose of social studies is to help young people develop the ability to make informed and reasoned decisions in their lives as citizens of a country. So on the overview, let's go now to the course, what the course aims for in preparing the learners. And number one, there is the national and global citizenship. The subject will extensively cover national and global citizenship in different levels. And this is to give the lifelong learning and then enable the learners to live peacefully, coexistence. There will also be participation in governance. Governance is also extensively covered in most of our substrand. Then there will be seeking to inculcate in the learner a deeper understanding of the value systems that define our society. That is living together as the society, because Kenya is made up of so many sub-tribes and tribes. Then we also aim to nurture and demonstrate concerns for collective responsibility as good citizens. And the citizenship is covered extensively. We are going to explore that. And the other primary course of learning social studies is to integrate the study of social studies in sciences and other humanities. This subject is very much integrated. And as we go through it, we will finally have an effective way of teaching social studies in both primary and the junior schools. Then I talked about the change, the overview, the revised social studies curriculum. What informed the change? And I have compiled them into three areas. One, there is the disconnect between the school content and the world of work. 844, that was one of the major problems that enabled us to have the new CBC. Then youth and employment was a problem. Children go to school. The curriculum was aimed at, it was geared towards teaching for the jobs. There were no creativity. People could not create their own jobs. Then there was disconnect with the needs of the 21st century, which has been dubbed as knowledge and skill that demands a new set of competencies. And we have extensively covered the competencies in the new curriculum. Finally, there was the disconnect in realizing the national goals of education. And we are going to emphasize on the core values. We have inculcated the principles that will give us the nationalism, equality, and even responsibility among our learners. So in a nutshell, those are some of the things that informed the change of the curriculum from 844 to the new CBC that we have. Next slide is on what informed the changes. Continuation of that, there was also a recommendation by the public participation and the experts. And the need assessment that was conducted countrywide, it indicated that the system had become unpopular, and therefore there was a need to change it. It was actually exam-oriented, where children could even end up practicing in exam or practice so that they can score the good grades. And then there was also the advice from the Presidential Working Party on Education Reform of 2022. It informed that there was a need to change that curriculum. So the 844 system are not provided flexible education. And that's why after the learners are done with the grade 1 to 9, they are choosing pathways. The pathways are going to guide them in the world of work. Then there was the training for employment. It was a kind of a curriculum that was employment-oriented, where learners work to become doctors, they want to be teachers, they want to become nurses, but there is no way of creating new jobs. Then it was also exam-oriented, as explained on the recommendation by the public and the experts. So all these put together, there was a need to have the curriculum changed. And then all the learning areas were changed, and social studies specifically is what we are going to narrow down to in our presentation today. What is social studies? Let's start by defining social studies. And basically, it deals with the study of the people and the environment in which they live. And the key one is the environment. So the changes in content from 844 syllabus to the new rationalized curriculum for our environmental studies grade 1 to 3, I will give you a summary of what was rationalized or what is entailed in grade 1, 2, and 3. And our next slide is now I'm giving you the new rationalized design for grade 1. There are only 4 substrances in grade 1. And on the left side of my presentation, I have incorporated the major changes. So the 4 substrands of social environment, natural environment, resources in our environment, and the community service. When they changed the curriculum from grade 1 in the year 2024, there were around 6 things that were done. There was incorporation of content from hygiene and nutrition. I've given an example of the body care. There was adjustment of content. For example, the weather in the sky. There was merging of substance because the content was bulky for the learners at that grade. So some of them were merged. Then they introduced new outcomes and what you call the KIQs, the key inquiry questions. In every strand, there is a KIQs, or the key inquiry questions that enable the learners to think deeper and even research more as we move forward. Then there was also modification of some content. For example, energy was changed to sound. Then there was conversion of outcome to learning experiences. So majorly, those were the main changes for grade 1, 2, and 3. It is almost like a replica. So what we have done in grade 1 is the same thing that we have done in grade 2. You can see grade 2 substance, almost the same. The incorporation of content, merging, there was modification, there was conversion. Grade 3 is the same. So grade 1, 2, and 3, there are 4 strands. Those were the main changes that were into. So as a teacher, the effective teacher of social studies, because I told you, social studies is a spiral subject where we teach from simple to complex. So grade 1, 2, and 3, that is majorly what we are covering in that very low grade of starting the starters from preschool. So now let's go to our main focus for today, grade 4, grade 5, and grade 6. Actually, in grade 4, 5, and 6 was not rationalized. What happened is they revised the content that was there. The content was revised. And in the revision, we have grade 4. Let me give you an example of grade 4, where we study about our county. And you remember those who are teaching social studies in the 844 system, grade 4 was one of the main problems. The book was so bulky. It was so large for the learners because it had the 8 provinces that we used to cover at that time. And it was very difficult for the publishers and book writers to have a small book that could teach the learners. But as we learn more on effective teaching of social studies, by the end of the presentation, there will be a solution to that. And those strands in grade 4, the 6 of them, natural and built environment, people and population, culture and social organizations, resources and economic activities, citizenship and the governance, a few learning areas or outcomes changed. So you can see they remain the way that they are in grade 4. So those substrands, every one of them, in the natural built environment, the learner is supposed to learn about their own county. And there was a big gap. And by the end of the presentation, we found a solution. And it will be found in a book that is going to give us the details of each of the counties in Kenya. Because most of the social studies teachers, they are complaining that the content in most of the books is not enough to, for example, cover the Meru County let's say, take an example compared to Turkana County. So as we learn more on effective teaching of social studies, that question will be answered as we move forward. If you go now to grade 5, almost the same. So if you compare grade 5 from the 2019 curriculum and the one that was nationalized, very few changes were there. And the first one was introduction of the CSL. CSL is Community Service Learning. And that one will carry us across from grade 1 up to grade 9. Community service learning is a key learning area in social studies, and the children are introduced to that concept at grade 5. Then the sum of the substrands had been dropped. And the sum of the strands, they were converted to substrands. There was also very few outcomes dropped. Most of the outcomes were rewarded. There were also learning experiences that were reduced for some substrands and new ones introduced. When we had the other presentation the first time, I gave you the breakdown of those changes, and I think they are posted on our Facebook group. If you check Oxford University Press Facebook, you can follow that presentation for more details on the specifics that were included in those changes. If you go now to grade 5 and 6, it's almost the same. Grade 6, there were very minimal changes also. They introduced introduction of few learning outcomes. There was revising of some of the outcomes. Then there is something that the KICD introduced. The word discuss was introduced from what you used to call state. Because grade 6 is where the learners do their final so that they can join the junior schools. So it was found necessary that they should do what we call deep learning. And discuss was introduced. In the other curriculum, before that, the one discussed was totally not in grade 6. Then they removed some of the substrands. So in a nutshell, those are some of the changes that were introduced in our grade 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And as we move on to grade 9, I also introduce you, give you a few changes that were introduced, but in a nutshell, those are some of the changes that we introduced in our junior school, grade 1, in our primary, grade 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Let's now look at something on the junior schools. And the social studies now in junior school, it became more complex or more advanced. And this is where the learners now are introduced to history, geography, citizenship, and the life skills. And this is living together now as people. So it enabled the learner to be aware and concerned more about their welfare. Remember, we defined social studies as the study of the people and their environment. So there were quite a number of things that would be introduced. And the guiding principle, when the content was getting developed, was the Constitution of Kenya of 2010. There's even the Vision 2030. That is the key pillar in guiding our country on how we develop by 2030. Then it borrowed heavily from the National Goals of Education. Then there was the decision of paper number 8 of 2013. So among all those things, those areas, the content for grade 7, 8, and 9 was developed. So in my next slide, this is a summary of what the learners are going to study in grade 7 to 9. Remember, it was called social studies. Now there is the history part, there is the geography part, there is citizenship, and this one was merged with the life skills. So you can see, even though it is one subject, one book, there are around 4 subjects in one. And the aim of having this kind of presentation is to guide our teachers in covering those areas. And the challenge that we are facing, even as teachers and writers, is that if a teacher is teaching grade 7, and you are assigned social studies in the timetable, you will be required to teach history, geography, governance, what we call citizenship, and the life skills. And some of the teachers complain. I also run a school, and I have seen some of the teachers complaining that if they are history majors in the university or they studied geography and the Kiswahili, and they are given social studies, it is becoming very challenging for them to teach the entire studies content from grade 7. But now that's why we are here today, so that we can discuss, we can share ideas, and get to understand how we can teach this very broad subject effectively. So next is now, up to there, we have covered the first part, and I'll ask Susan to give us the question that the teachers, the interactive poll question that we can have right now. You there, Madam Susan?
Yes, I am.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the question reads, identify 3 changes that were introduced in social studies grade 1 to 3 after rationalization of the curriculum. Any 3 changes that were introduced in social studies grade 1 to 3 after rationalization of the curriculum? Just put them in the chat box, because I'm sure some of us joined in a bit earlier. Maybe if you joined right now, you may have missed out, but those who joined a bit earlier, they could probably just put in your answers in there, and our trainer will help us know whether we are moving along together. So there's one, Peter, who has mentioned CSL, introduction of community service learning. Yeah, so here we are specific to grade 1 to 3. What any changes that you have noted from this presentation? Merging of hygiene with environmental studies, that has also been mentioned by Isaiah. CSL has been mentioned again by Paul. Community service learning has been mentioned. Social environment, CSL, introduction of KIQs in grade 3 CSL. Faith says merging of substance. Is someone thanking you for the presentation, George? I think he knows you. Changes that were introduced in the outcomes. Discuss was replaced with state. Some strands were removed. Yeah, merging of hygiene. So maybe, George, you can tell us whether we got it right or whether we missed out on something.
Very good. I think all those answers are correct. But specifically, I wanted grade 1, 2, and 3. So there was I expected answers like incorporation of new content. Somebody has given us hygiene and nutrition. That is very good. Then there was also adjustment. I gave you an example of weather and the sky. Some of them merged. I can see some are writing merging. That is very correct. There was also the modification of content. I give an example of the energy to sound in grade 1. There was also conversion of outcomes to experiences. So those are some of the changes that were introduced in grade 1. And all those answers are very correct. It means our listeners are following us very well. So we are ready to move forward. Any additional, Susan?
Yes, there have been quite a number that have been added, substrand to learning experience.
Very good.
Yeah, dropping of some substrands, etc., etc., yeah.
Very good. Thank you so much. Let's move on now to our objective for today's presentation. That is number 2. And that is what is carrying as, that's why I want you to listen carefully, so that by the end of presentation, if there will be any question, the teachers are free to ask. So let's go to effective methods of teaching social studies. And before I start, social studies generally was a subject in where I come from. People used to say this is for the politicians, the end teachers who know politics, but that is not true anymore. They said it's a subject where children are supposed to copy notes in classes. Some say this is the subject that learners is a booster for other subjects. But all those things were there in 844. In the new approaches for teaching social studies is very different from the 844 that we had before. So social studies pedagogy is essentially inquiry based. So the way that the design has been set and the way that we have done our product, or the way that the books have been set, it is inquiry based. It is no longer memorizing stories about history or copying notes for the learners. Then it also encourages the learner to ask critical questions. And they also need to carry out investigations. And then they make conclusions on various topics. So the teacher should use authentic and appropriate learning activities because everything in social studies today is activity-based. And there are varied learning resources that promote interactive learning, where the learner interacts with the teacher, they may interact with the parent, they may interact even between themselves, and even the community around them. And as we study the effective methods of teaching social studies, this will make studies more meaningful. The aim is to make it more meaningful, purposeful, stimulating, and even enjoyable to the learner so that they don't listen to stories and sleep. So in my next presentation, the first method that I want us to explore is what we call the inquiry-based learning. And in IBL, it places the questions, the ideas, and observation at the center of every learning experience. So if you compare the way that we are packaged social studies in primary and even junior school, it is no longer going to be where the teacher is the source of knowledge. The teacher will be a facilitator of knowledge. You don't have necessarily even to know what you're teaching. You can research, you can give them assignment. And that's why we have a lot of interactions with the ICT. So it requires them to engage in evidence-based reasoning. Then they create their own, using their own method, they have what we call creative problem solving, not copying notes any longer. Then the curiosity and the motivation for the learners lie at the heart of IBL. Every school must motivate the learners. The learners can be motivated in different ways. So I say a curious child is motivated. So by asking those questions, you develop their curiosity and then they get motivated. Then they should seek answers and apply those answers to their personal experiences. I told you the definition of social studies is the study of the learners and the environment they live at. When they are moving from school in grade 1, they learn about the interaction in the community. Then they move to their sublocation, their location, to the county, to Kenya, to East Africa, to the rest of the world. We even have some new topics like where we study something beyond Africa, like the global citizenship. So those substance, those content, it is to motivate the learners and bring out their curiosity. Then there is the good news is that given the right conditions, every child is in our classroom can demonstrate curiosity, an attitude of wonder, and even the desire to learn. And that's why in our effective teaching, we are going to explore methods whereby we can make our learners more curious and then they love the subject. So inquiry-based mostly is the questions, ideas, and observations. The next method is what we call the integrated learning. And in integrated learning, the content and the skill from one learning area is used in another. For example, if you study mathematics, the skills in mathematics could help the learners to do the calculation of time in longitudes. So this means that the content from the various learning areas are easily recognizable and they can be used to solve the problem from one. And I have given an example of skills learned in English language and other languages. They are used in answering questions in social studies. So integrated learning approach should be explored by a teacher who is willing to be effective in teaching social studies. Then we also have open-ended instruction. In this method, questions are structured in a way that with the multiple choices. And I'll give you an example of some of the questions that were brought in 26 KJSEA exam. Multiple choice is Kenya National Examination Council like to use multiple choices very well, possibly because it is easier to mark. But open-ended instruction should be explored, and the learners are not directed towards one right answer, but rather multiple choices. They choose from so many other choices. I have given an example there, which is which issues affecting your community can be solved using peaceful conflict resolution mechanisms. You can see apart from answering the question, that is going to impart positive knowledge to the learners. So in open-ended instruction, the questions are set, and then they are not basically only looking for the right answer. They spur thinking, varied answers, different methods of answering questions. And as a teacher, you should embrace all those answers and explain to them there is no right answer. You just explain to the learners so that when you're using the open-ended instruction, you don't discourage the learners who get all the answers wrong most of the time. Then we have discussion. This is a very common approach in junior school, and it can be done in groups or in pairs. So when you'll be looking at the structure of our books and the content that we give to the children, there will be a lot of group work and pairing, work in groups. And every activity has been instructed in the teacher's guide on whether it will be done individually, it will be done in groups, or even in pairs. Then the learners are given a specific problem to talk about. And thereafter, you can have a few of them presenting and giving even the conclusion like the debates in English. The same way, we can use this approach in teaching social studies. And technically, social studies teachers, in the 8-4-4 system, they were the most lazy because a mathematics teacher gives an activity after every objective that they teach. What does a social studies teacher do? After teaching, you leave. So to become an effective teacher of social studies, let's have assessment in every outcome that you teach. If you adopt that kind of an approach, then your children will be able to learn more and even cover what is supposed to be covered in every grade. Then the learner should be record points discussed in their exercise books. Writing. And that's why we said we integrate even the English. They're good at writing in social studies so that the learners can, as they grow, as they go to the senior schools, even in the universities where they will be writing, the lecturers could be able to read. It is a shame that some of the children can write and even you can't read. So handwriting is part of what should be inculcated even in social studies to become an effective teacher. Then we must explore points that have not been presented in order to save on time. So before you conclude the discussion, you need to give your highlights. And that's where you can infuse something that the learners didn't actually get it right. The other method is discussion. I've given an example on page 4. Our life today in grade 4, there is an activity there on page 64, where it is say, look at the pictures of traditional houses. So in our life today book, that is an example of a discussion. The learners are told to talk about the houses in the pictures. And then they need to answer which of the houses above have you seen in your community. So then what material? So by the time that the learners are going to discuss, they will have brought out so many other points. So all you need to do as a teacher is to come and conclude. And you can even have one of them concluding so that the subject will be interactive. The next method that I want us to study is field visits. In social studies, this is a critical approach because field visit, where we are studying about the factories, the resources and the economic activities, children need to make visits. And when you are making visits, then as a teacher, you need to be very careful and work with the administration because the field visits are expensive. So we have some few teachers who plan visit without informing the administration or even the parent. So seek permission from the authorities first. Conduct a prior visit so that if there are risks, then you can prepare your learners effectively. Then set out objectives and discuss them with the learners before they make the visit. And you need to guide the learners with questions to ask. So don't just take them out, even if they're going to study a river that is passing through the school, make sure that you give them these guidelines. Then question them on possible hazards, where there are poisonous plants, for example. There could be bridges. There was a case of a teacher who took the learners to swim and they were not well versed. So finally, they end up even losing the children. So as an effective teacher of social studies, before you plan any visit, even outside the classroom, make sure you make all those arrangements. And in our books, we have explained very well, especially in the CSL strand. That one has effectively covered the visits. And when you go through those books, you can find out that. Then after the visit, there must be some discussions, some reporting, some writing, so that the learners can remember what you covered. Then the other method we need to explore. Those technically are the main 4 methods I chose. There are more. There are more methods, but to be an effective social studies teacher, those are the main ones that cut across the grade 1 up to grade 9. Let's go to the assessment approaches in social studies. We have covered now, first we have done the overview. Now we have done effective methods of teaching social studies. Let's go to number 3, which is assessment now. After you have taught, you have gone for the visit, they have understood the changes, and you have taught them very well. How do you assess learners in social studies? And how does the Kenya National Examination Council test the learners? Remember this year, grade 9 will be doing their first assessment, I think somewhere in November or around there. So how do you prepare your learners for that? So that by the time they will be choosing their pathways, you won't be the teacher who is complaining that your school didn't do well in certain, possibly a certain pathway. So assessment is very important. And assessment in social studies start from grade 3. We know those who are teachers in junior school and primary, you know, assessment is continuous. Where the learners are registered in grade 3, they continue all the way to grade 9. So there are 2 forms of assessment. The first one is called formative assessment, and then there is summative assessment. So in CBC, formative assessment is also known as assessment for learning, or assessment as learning is going on. It is given to the course of learning to provide information that will be help improve the quality of learning. And we do that any other day. Then there is what you call the summative assessment, or the assessment of learning. It is carried out at the end of the course. That's why in grade 6, KIPSEA, they do 40%. The rest, 60%. 40% had already been done in grade 3, 4, and 5. This year, when you'll be doing their final assessment in grade 9, they only cover possibly 60%. The rest has been covered as formative assessment. And I have found out that this form of assessment, it will entirely depend on the teacher. I have seen cases in my school where I teach, where children score very high in formative assessment, but when the final assessment is brought in grade 6, those learners don't do well. It also casts a lot of credibility issues on the teachers. And the way that CBC is planned, especially in social studies, it requires teachers to be very careful and don't over possibly assess the learners, because some of the assessments are posted by the Kenya National Examination Council even before. So the teacher of today is not like the teacher of the old days. You need to give the learner so that if they choose the wrong pathway, you may frustrate them in future. So make sure if they are given an assessment in social studies of cleaning a market or doing something, let them do it. Then assess them accordingly and give them genuine results. Don't exaggerate. Don't exaggerate. So these 2 forms of assessment, we cannot run away from them. Even so, we are saying CBE is mostly learner-centered. There is no way we can run away from summative assessment. And surprisingly, I'll give you an example of the last year's questions. The ABCD is still there. So the next slide is, or now, the first form is what we call the peer assessment. Peer assessment, it is collaborative, where the learners evaluate each other's work. And in every activity that we have done in our books, you'll get so many activities that are having peer assessment. Then the strategies for effective peer assessment include the following. And number 1, there is you introduce the learners to the activity. Then provide the guidelines as the learners are carrying out the activity. And you need to encourage them to give detailed feedbacks, not yes or no. Then allow the learners time to reflect on the feedback and even revise their work. You can even choose in the groups that they are studying, you may give one of them to stand and give a summary on behalf of the teacher. And that's when the peer assessment, as it is entailed in the content for the CBC, it will be applied by the teacher, and then that is going to help them learn more and even choose their pathways well. The next one is self-assessment. So from peer assessment, you go self-assessment, or what you call the self-evaluation. And it refers to the process of learners objectively reflect on their own performance. And this one helps them to identify the areas where they are not doing well or where they are performing well. So this self-assessment should be done continuously, whether it's summative or even formative. So self-assessment, the learners control their learning and they develop their own self-awareness. Critical thinking, the teacher is not rushing them. They assess. So you may need to guide the learners closely. You can moderate their scores initially by carrying out your own assessment after they have done theirs. So over time, the experiences in the self-assessment will improve. And you can structure the self-assessment using tools like the checklist. We covered checklist in the last presentation. There are also the open-ended questions. You can draw from them specific learning outcomes and guide them where possibly they did do it well. So let them assess themselves and also guide them on the language they use. Because some of them, there are those who talk more in the class. There are those who like to dominate the others. There are those who sit at the back of the class and they normally don't talk much. So make sure as a teacher, as you move around the class, you understand the individual differences of your learners. Because if you allow self-assessment to be there, some of them will talk, and then you end up teaching a very small percentage of the learners who are more outspoken. So self-assessment should be guided such that every learner participates, including the learners with disability, including those who are even hearing differences or any form of difficulty. They need also to be guided so that they can assess themselves and assess the others. Then there is oral questions. This is the most common. Every teacher uses oral questions in class, but it lacks meaning when you make it like the only method of assessing. Asking them, have you understood? When they say yes or no, you're not helping them. So in oral questions, they are posed to the learners by the teacher. And mostly you ask them verbally, or you can even have them structured or pre-recorded. So the strategies for effective questions and answer is this. One, allow the learner to think before she can answer the question. Then use both closed-ended and open-ended questions so that it doesn't become a monologue where the teacher is asking questions, the children are answering. Oral questions should be answered by individual learners. And we say a good teacher avoids chorus answers where everybody is speaking. It will be very difficult to assess whatever you wanted to do. To include questions that promote high order thinking. Oral questions is low order, but you can never avoid it. It also keeps the learners alert. For example, a learner who is sleeping in class, if you ask them questions, they may stop sleeping possibly and start concentrating in the lesson. So oral questions is also another good method of assessment approach in social studies. Then let me show you an example of how our products, the NEC assessment for last year, I have sampled a few questions in last year's national assessment from grade 6. And normally what they do, they are formative and summative. I explained. So assessment for learning, that one is divided for administering the learning process. We say it is assessment as learning is going on. And that is done in the classroom by the teacher. It can also be school-based. Summative is assessment of learning and are taken at the end of a learning period. For example, grade 1, primary to 6. Then grade 7, 8, 9, junior school. Senior schools will be having their own summative assessment. So in summative assessment, the national assessment, this template, I wish you can watch it carefully, is an extract from grade 4. Kenya National Examination Council 2024, Social Studies grade 4. And this question was brought, it is saying the county children officer was involved to discuss forms of child abuse with grade 4 learners. One of the learners asked the officer 2 ways the learners would be protected from abuse. The correct responses should be, so it is written 1 and 2. This question was in September, grade 4. You can see even the logo for the NEC. And if you go to our Life Today series book, it is like a replica of what happened there. There is an activity 7, page 142, that is saying, how can we protect ourselves and others from abuse? And you can see where if the learners did that activity well, and the activity is adding yes and no, and it's a very long activity, very engaging. So when the learners talk about other ways in which children can protect, they will be very easily tackle the questions in the Kenya National Examination Council. Then number 3 is saying, what can adults do to protect children from abuse? That's why we said after the learners have discussed, the teacher needs to put their own input. And if this is the trend, because grade 9 this year is the pioneer class for the CBE. If this is trend, then it's a good way of assessing the learners. Because normally, what used to happen is in primary, they used to write A, B, C, or D. But now you can see if a learner doesn't know or doesn't understand the language properly, English in particular, then they would be able to write that answer correctly. Remember, the handwriting, the punctuations, the language in social studies is also essential. So the teacher of today should insist from the rote teaching that we used to use those days. So this question sampled here can be a guideline on how a teacher is going to be effective in teaching social studies in class. If we go to grade 4 again, there is another sample that I've given there. The question was, grade 4 learners discussed ways of practicing democracy in school. Give 2 ways they may have come up with. And you can see the learners need to write the answers. It is no longer going to be A, B, C, D. So if you look at our life space social studies, learners book page 147, that activity was stuck on there as activity 2. And it is giving the answers very well. So a learner who was very serious in covering that activity will be having very easy time in answering the question that was brought by the Kenya National Examination Council. Then, for those who have not seen it, I have shared one of the learners here called Rafiki Kome, and I asked for the authority from the parent. You can see this learner scored everything. English, exceeding expectation. Kiswahili, exceeding expectation. Mathematics, exceeding expectation. So it means this learner was well prepared. And the teacher did very well, such that by the end of grade 6, that learner has scored everything. So you only need scores from grade 7, 8, and 9, and it will be, this learner can choose any pathway that they want. They can be STEM, they can go to mathematics, they can go to social, any. They qualify for any of those pathways in grade 9. And then at the back of the certificate, this is a certificate for the Kenya National Examination Council performance report. It's a report. They are giving the description of how the performance levels were indicated. And the performance level 4, exceeding. This learner consistently, with a very high level of accuracy, displays the knowledge. So you can see if this is the way that the Kenya National Examination Council want us to prepare our learners, or even the curriculum want us to prepare learners, we need to have consistency and high level of accuracy. And that can only come from an effective teacher. There is even the lowest performance level of 1, where the learner just attempting. So you can see if you want to become an effective social studies teacher today, you need to teach using the right method. So that is a sample of Kenya National Examination Council rubric on how they rank, or now they describe the performance for the, and it is called assessment performance report. It is performance. So it will be attached. This learner, Johari, in his future, everywhere even the job that certificate is going to be among the many certificates that possibly you'll acquire as he grows as a learner. Then this part now, because I told you when you are teaching social studies, we said it has around 4 learning areas: geography, history, governance, and even the life skills. So the teacher who doesn't use digital component in social studies will be having very difficult time. And I've given a few examples around 10 ways. There is the QR codes, voiceovers, online games, and the books that we have written. As we are going to see in the next slide, a teacher who is not digitally empowered will be having very difficult time in teaching of social studies, because you can't be very good in geography, you cannot be good in history, you cannot be good in life skills, you cannot be good in governance. So if you did history in the university and you need to teach geography, and there is no other teacher to teach, because we can't split one subject and give, for example, social studies to 3 teachers. You would use digital method to learn and teach, because we defined the teacher as a facilitator of knowledge, not the source of knowledge as we used to do in the old curriculum. This is an example of a QR code, and I'll display a few of them in our book. QR means quick response, and the books that we have developed, we have to help the teacher in teaching. For example, if you cannot sing the national anthem, then there is a video in the book, inside the book, where you can scan, and then you get it. So you can use your camera, but you must have downloaded the QR code. Then the code is available in different sections of the learner's book. So our books have them in different sections. Let me show you an example. You can also use what you call the Google Lens. If you have not downloaded, if you are not downloading the QR scanner, you can use just the Google. There is a section at the corner. I've indicated with the red where we have Google. There is the mark for the Google Lens. Click that Google Lens, then focus it on the object that you want to scan or the QR code, and it will give you the information that you want. Another example is this one. Those you possibly, if you have your phone, because time is also going, you may try to scan on your screen the East African anthem. In our atlas, we have East African anthem. There is a QR code there. There is another one for the cardinal point. There is another one for historical built environment. Those are some of the learning areas that we do. They are covered in our book. So if you scan that, even as we talk, you will have to listen to the melody, the beautiful voices singing. If you want to learn about the cardinal point, click it, and there will be, that will just pop up. So where the teachers are complaining that they are given subject that they have not done in the university or colleges, this is coming in handy. And that's why this presentation today is to make you an effective teacher of our social studies. So allow me to rush. I would wait for you to download those ones. But in our atlases and our books that we have written, we have a number of QR codes to help you teach effectively what possibly you thought is not possible. This is the structure of our learner's book from grade 1 to 9. There's activity part, there is read and learn. Remember, there's a digital spot. There is even my new one. So that is just technically the structure of our grade 1 to 9 books. The approach that we took is to help us achieve the objectives as we have covered them in the previous slide. Then the most important one is this one. This is where I wanted us to look at. The teacher's guide. And let me take at least a minute in explaining the importance of a teacher's guide. Most of the teachers are avoiding the teacher's guide. And if you're not using the teacher's guide, then your learners will be lacking a lot. Because the books are so compressed, there are some content that cannot be written in the book, but it is there. In number 7, where we have the main ideas of the lesson. So our books have explored. Anything extra that was not the book is put there as a notes. Those who like notes, then the teacher's guide should be your friend. It will give you also the assessment methods, everything that I've talked about, including even a lesson plan where you're given the lesson development. Instead of writing the lesson plan, the school should appreciate that give each teacher a teacher's guide. It is well written, where the way that even Teacher Service Commission want it, the way that the ministry want. So you can't teach some of these subjects without using the teacher's guide. And one of them is social studies. So our teacher's guide is very extensive. It is covering content from introduction all the way, 15 items in one book, and it's only one. So please keep buying the teacher's guide. They will be very helpful in terms of interpreting the curriculum. They even give the competencies. They are given there. They are even linking those areas. So any teacher who is teaching social studies, you can never be an effective teacher if you are not having a teacher's guide. Next, this is how our books look. Grade 1 looks like that. You can see our grade 1 book. I only have around 20 minutes to finish. Our Life Today book 1. That's how our book 2 looks like. For those who want to see our Oxford book 2, you can see it there. Very beautiful. There is book 3. That is how it looks like. Very nice. Our Life Today and the answer book and even the workbook. We also have grade 4. Very beautiful. That is covered in our county. It is there. Then we have our book 5, our Life Today. It is there. Where grade 6, that is our newest book called Our Life Today. So in our in Oxford, grade 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the series is called Our Life Today. Our Life Today. And it was very popular even in the 844. When we reached grade 9, we changed now. Grade 7, 8, and 9, it teaches. This is our revision book for grade 7. It is called Assess, Revise, and Assess. And it is giving you everything that you need for the learners to do well. There is a alignment of the curriculum, summaries, There are practical questions to guide you. There are even extended exercises. So this book is also very important. It teaches studies in grade 7. It's very extensive. It will give you even the progress check where you can even have the exams done. And that book is also available in the bookshops anywhere you want to access it. Then our grade 8 book, I have given a whole list of them, but the social studies is called Evolving World. Very beautiful book there. You can also see because you need to know the book by the cover. Look at it. Grade 9 is also there. Evolving World to studies from grade 9. So to help you cover what I have taught you or what we have discussed, these are the product that we have. Then, finally, before I conclude, we have now what you call the atlases. And I told you in grade 4, when you were doing grade 4, our county, if the book has not covered your county, then you don't need to get worried. We have the atlas, and there are two. 360 atlas for primary, and there's also 360 atlas for the junior school. So it is aligned to the CBE, grade 4 up to 9. The other, it's well researched. And 360 Atlas is not a joke. It's a well-written book. It also has beautiful pictures to motivate the learners as they learn. Then, this part, we have now creative use of teaching, so studies using them, the Atlas. I've given you the breakdown of the books and how the content has been covered. So if you don't have an Atlas, it will be very difficult to teach. And I'll show you why. This atlas, the two atlases that we have, they are both pioneering. They are pioneering the teaching of primary school and even the junior school. And they'll provide you with the most current information. For example, what makes 360 Atlas special? They have given you example one, it is easy to read. There will be exclusive digital content, including the QR code that will teach you several things. There is also simple map keys in every part. Then I would read everything there. Let me show you by example. This is now the structure looks like for our atlas. It has the first part on the preliminary checkpoint. There is the Kenya. And in Kenya, here, there will be counties. There will be a section on the themes. There will be a section on East Africa, Africa, world. And then the last part, we have a Gazeta where it's giving you the different statistics that you need. So if you look at it critically, this is what I call the spiral arrangement of social studies from Kenya to Eastern Africa, to world. So if you look at the table of content, it has those parts. How are you going to use this atlas? What are the types of maps? Reading and interpretation of maps. There is even the national symbols of Kenya. So this is not the atlas where you need to only do reference on the maps. It has something on the constitution. There is even East African community anthem and so many other things. Then the next part, if we pick an example of Kenya, imagine an atlas covering political history of Kenya, giving you the history of Kenya, the counties, all the 47 counties. So those teachers who are complaining that grade 4, they are not getting content to teach in grade 4, talk to your principal, your end teacher, and tell them you can't teach the studies in grade 4 if you don't have the atlas. And among the best atlas is our 360 atlas, where counties 47, and they cover the physical. For example, the first one is Mombasa, county 001. Then you go to Kwale, Kilifi, Tana River, all the counties, all the way. And our color code is different for Kenya. All that list is showing every county in Kenya. And it will be giving you the political, the history, the physical, the statistics, the data, everything that you need in grade 4 so that you can tackle that grade well. Then if you go to Eastern Africa, we have covered everything. Political, there is even the physical features, climate, vegetation, and population. Eastern Africa, all that is covered, including the vast or the largest of the topics, resources and economic activities, agriculture, fishing, and it is having very nice pictures that can motivate the learners as they go through transport, communication. Then in Africa, we have done political and the physical. And in the world, we have the political map and even the physical a few areas. So these are some of the features in the atlas. We have what we call the accompanying digital content. If you want to, there is a small QR code in East Africa. You are teaching about the East African anthem. You don't know the tune. Just take your phone, Google Lens, scan. Then you can even have the video and the learners can sing. Those of us who cannot sing, you don't get worried about the Eastern African community. And you can see digital resources are available in all the pages. I've sampled a few. Page 6, 11, 150, 158. There are a lot of digital content to support the learning as you teach. Then you show the accompanying digital content there. That's an example of QR code in our atlases. The East African anthem, the QR code is there. If you go to the introduction, look how cool it is. We have the Constitution of Kenya. We have the East African community. Even the national government. If you are teaching grade 5 and you want to teach about the national government, we have given you the breakdown. The 3 arms of government, their functions, and everything that you... So this product is not like an atlas. It is a friend of the teacher. In other words, it will be very difficult to become an effective teacher if you don't have such materials like this atlas. Look at the maps. They are rich. Look at them. They include those of the Kenya, East Africa, and all that. And the spiral, county, Kenya, East Africa, arranged in a way that even the learner can follow without the assistance of a teacher. Then if you go to the fact, we have a part called fact sheets and notes. Every fact. For example, there is a new topic called the contribution of selected traditional leaders. If you don't know anything about Ivoi Wamwenda or Mekatilili Wamenza, those notes are there. Because the book is having activities that are very summarized, then you come here now and give the learners those notes. If you want them to read more, it could be an extended link. And there is even the facts. For example, they are saying the county experiences semi-arid climatic. That is Makueni County. So maps, very large. You can see that one about Makueni, and you can read the details in between. Changes in plant life, all that is given in climate in the atlas. The next one is a part called self-check, because we're section. So we send the assessment for the Kenya National Examination Council. Look at those questions in the atlas. Study the maps in this page and do the following. So this book, when you teach, whatever you are teaching in class, then learners need to have them so that they can even use it as an assessment. It can also be used as an assessment for them, or it can also prepare the teaching for the next lesson or whatever that the teacher wants. In summary, we have also done Mombasa County. These are examples of the what our atlas has really covered. So if you pick Machakos County, you can see everything about Machakos County. If it's photograph, you can see there's a topic called photographs. You can also check and teach using that. The other one is look at the pictures. Very cool. Whatever that is not in the book, then the atlas is covering it. Then there is what you call do you know section. And it's also helping you in assessing. They can give you new things. For example, Makueni County is found in between Savo and Amboseli. So that can also motivate the learners in knowing some of the facts that you can't teach in the book. Then I have done just a few samples. Let me just do 2. Susan, allow me to only do 2. I know time is running out. The county government of Kenya in grade 4, see how it is covered. If you go to, for example, the county government, see everything about the county government is in the atlas. So you don't need to worry. Teach, then give them a supplementary. If you go to grade 5, Kenya, there is a substract called location, position, and size. Just see how it is covered. There is another sample of the national government of Kenya, grade 5. If you go to grade 6, formation of main physical features, and this is one of the most complex parts. Children in grade 6 really get it very difficult. So you can see formation of main physical features in Africa, grade 6, covered. Then if you go to grade 6 again, see the population distribution, covered. If you go to resources and economic activities, the atlas is covering all those things. And you can see, even without having any other resource, you can still teach and the learners can do well. There is a new topic called slavery and servitude. This is newly introduced in grade 7. The atlas has given you the maps. It has given you the trade routes. It has given you everything you need about slavery and servitude. Grade 7 again, there is a topic called African diaspora, a newly introduced topic that you don't get in any other part. So African diaspora is a new strand covered well, including the pictures and the statistics. If you go another to map reading, very critical in geography, grade 8, with the maps, the statistics given. If you go to map reading, grade 8 again, see the maps, very accurate, well printed out. If you go to grade 9, topic on topographical maps, And this one is giving teachers very difficult time. But look at it. Very well covered in that atlas. If you go to grade 9, maths, a topic called substrate called maths, very well covered. And finally, the Constitution of Kenya in grade 9, you can see it has given you every detail, including the stages in the constitution-making process in Kenya. And they're all about human rights. And these ones are atlases. They are no longer simple reference book. What there is inside in grade 9, covered well. Then finally, before I conclude, I think my time is up. We have workbooks and revision. I think I give you our workbooks from grade 1 to 9. They are also substituting what we have done with the text, the atlas, and now, if you want them to have only the assignments, these are the books to use, and I think they're everywhere in our bookshops. Finally, as I conclude, social studies now, to become an effective teacher, you have, I think you have got it that it is not possible to be an effective teacher if you are not digitally empowered, if you don't understand the effective teaching methods, then the assessment of the social studies. So, Susan, you give me up to 5:10. I am 2 minutes late. So can you please give us the final question before I take the questions from the listeners? Thank you so much. It's a wonderful presenting to you. Back to you, Madam Susan.
Thank you, George. Very informative session. Everyone is carrying home some good content. And let me just share the second question from the trainer, and we'll put in our answers in the chat box. The trainer would want to know, in social studies in grade 7 to 9, social studies in grade 7 to 9 covers majorly 4 areas. Name them. The curriculum in social studies grade 7 to 9, it covers majorly 4 areas. Which are these 4 areas? That's what the trainer would want to know, whether we were able to follow and get a grip of. Just put in your answers on the chat box. Yeah, Dennis says geography. There is also history from Sarah and Otieno, history and geography. Someone mentioned citizenship. Then there is life skills, history, geography, citizenship. There's life skills from many people. Governance from someone, Brian. Yes, so geography, history, citizenship, life skills from Centric. Yeah, basically almost the same, rotating around those answers. George.
Very good. I think you've got the questions correct. I'll clap for you for being such good listeners. So it is actually history, geography, citizenship, what used to be called civics or governance. Then there is the aspect of life skills. And life skills is also well covered in our text. I have not covered it here, but we also have a life skill component in our social studies. So let me take the questions. Otherwise, if there is any addition from Susan, this is your time.
Thanks, George. I'll just dive into the questions right away so that we can keep to the time we had mentioned. I think someone missed out on the changes that were effected in JS, social studies. Probably you could go back to that. He asks, what are the major changes in JS in terms of content, strand or substrands?
Oh, good.
So probably someone missed out on that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I've taken a note. I can have more that I tackle them at the same time.
Okay, and then someone else asks about how can we involve learners on online activities across study groups, like in grade 6? How do we involve learners on online activities across study groups, e.g. in grade 6? Then there's a question I've seen from Dennis. What's the difference between a pre-visit and a reconnaissance? What's the difference between a pre-visit and a reconnaissance? Yeah.
Very good. So I'll tackle those 3 questions before the rest streams. On the changes in grade 6, technically they combined. I think we talked about combining, infusing what we call
JS, not grade
the
6,
junior
but
school.
yeah, JS.
Oh yeah,
JS.
the junior school.
Mm.
Yes, yes. Social studies was merged with life skill. I think that was the main change, where they merged life skills together with history, geography, citizen, and it became one content. That was a major. Otherwise, most of the strands they were just reallocated or rearranged. Then on the issue of how to teach online in grade 6, online teaching, or what we call the online guide in grade 6. I know in Kenya there are some schools that have no connection to internet. We have schools that have no funding for the ICT, and actually, a teacher should be creative. That's why we have the QR code. You can scan, for example, the national anthem in your QR code. Then you present in class using your phone without necessarily the learners having the computers. So the teacher need to be more creative. Or you can even pre-record something and you present it to the learners either in your phone, or you can even use the computers in the school. Then the parent. Some of the parents are very supportive and they have access to internet and even the mobile. So among those things, including even planning at the school level to have ICT equipment. Otherwise, teaching of online teaching requires an approach where the teacher needs to be creative. Where you have the materials and facilities, you can even use the teachers. You can even the school. You can even advise your principal or end teacher to be supporting you, because I know in the schools, every school in Kenya got to call the digital they were called the tablets. There was digital learning program, and every school was given the yellow tablet, and most of them are just lying in the school. Teachers don't use them any longer. And then the use of internet in my school, what we do, I create a hotspot. You can create a hotspot with your phone, then you can tether so many other tablets, and the learners can use your mobile phone as a hotspot. You don't need to have a source of Wi-Fi. So among so many other approaches, ICT is not as difficult to infuse in class it was before. Then on the pre-visit and the reconnaissance, it's almost the same. What we need to do is to prepare the learners before, so that you can assess the risk, you can assess the cost, even the availability. You can't visit a national park before informing them. So technically, they all means visiting the place that you want your learners to be prior. And that's a very important component in CSL. CSL teaching requires you to revisit. Otherwise, if there is any other addition from you, Susan, I will appreciate.
Yeah, let me ask another question here. There's a teacher asking, is it effective to include QR codes in the content while most schools don't have digital facilities?
I think the QR codes, they have not covered everything sufficiently, but you can include them. It will be a good way of teaching the learners. And what we have done mostly, like in the Atlas, is the complex things. For example, the formation of physical features, those things that learners need to view. And some of the videos that we have done, they are 3D. They can show you very clearly what is happening. So you can infuse them. You can join QR code, any other method. You can use in the class, even outside the class, they are allowed. And they are inside the pages now, not like before where we were having we also have interactive digital online. I think with Oxford we have it. Learners can, but the QR code is there with the learners. Even at home, they can scan, they can listen, and it's a very important component in teaching social studies.
Okay, Anthony says he has a question on handling CSL. Should he complete, sorry, I can't, let me just access that question again. 1 minute. Okay. Great. Okay, I can't get that question. I think Anthony.
On CSL.
Yeah, there's something I wanted to find out. Yes, should he complete the CSL before continuing with the other strands, or does he have to have it running while covering the other areas? I hope that question
Oh
is.
my goodness. I think you might have missed a point. CSL now is an old strand, and you cannot teach without using the design from the KICD. You need to download it, and it's a full. It's no longer a substitute. It's not supporting the teaching. It's a content on its own, and it must be covered as guided by the design, because the design is giving us the breakdown. What is covered in content one, natural, for example, natural resources, built environment, people, and population. It is there, and it must be taught as a main strand. It's no longer a substitute where you need to teach and do it after. But what I advise the teachers, if it's practical in nature, for example, you come from a place where there are flowers, you don't do something about flowers or rivers. The best is to put it when the season is the best. If it is visiting a national park, you can't visit some of the national park during the rainy season. So I advise the teachers to understand the content of the CSL, then they implement it when it is the best in the county you want. Because in Kenya, there are different changes in climate and all that. So that one entirely depends on the creativity of the teacher. But if you read it, the best time to do the best season to do it fit you better, do it that time, as long as it is within the content of the design.
Okay, George, you may need to go back to the rationalization in grade 4 to 6, or is it the revision? There's someone who missed out on that. Maybe you can go back to that slide. The revision in between grade 4 to 6. Maybe you can just share quickly. I can stop sharing mine.
Right back.
4 to 6.
Grade 6, that was
From grade 4 to 6.
4 to 6. So 4, normally, most of there were a few learning areas and outcomes are changed or merged. So they gave us 1 to 6. That is natural built environment, people, and there was not very much. It was actually, I said, the note there says grade 4, 5, and 6 was revised. They reduced the content, some of the learning areas. They tweaked a few others. If you go to what I presented from grade, I think he or she has seen that one. Grade 5, that is introduction of the CSL as a substrand. You know, those are I only included the notable changes. There was one substrand that had been dropped. I seen some of the substrand were converted, but technically it was not rationalized. They just revised it in a way. They reduced some of the content, the arrangement of the learning areas, and the learning experiences. Some of them also merged. And in the last presentation that we did, which is online, I think it is in our Facebook group, I said you can get the specifics from there because I gave the table and every topic and how it was changed. Then in grade 6, there was introduction of new learning outcomes, and I gave them in the last presentation. There was revising of some of them. Then I said they introduced high order verbs like discuss, which was not there before. It used to be state list. But KICD later noticed that the children are completely finishing the primary without having a deep understanding of some of the concepts. And they introduced the discuss part, which used to be state. Then they removed some of the substance. Some of them were taken to grade 9. And if they need the nitty-gritty, they are in the presentation that we did, which of course, I think you also share this one with them so that they can follow, because I see some of them asking about whether they can access the presentation. So technically, the grade 4, 5, and 6 was just revised.
Great. I hope Anita has been answered. I think we'll bring it to, let me just check whether there's any other that has been, because most of them had overlapped, so that's why I've not shared all the questions. I think the last one, how best can we teach political, social, and economic activities of the selected communities in grade 7?
Grade 7.
Teach, yes, political, social, and economic activities of the selected communities in grade 7.
Yes, grade 7 content. That one, I said any teacher who is using, first of all, you need to go to the design and you get the specific learning objective for that lesson. Then the texts are written in a way that they give you the activities. Then go to the teacher's guide now for the notes. They have given you the grade 7. If you check the most of the teacher's guide, they have given the breakdown of those communities. Then now go to the atlases. And we are lucky we have our 360 that is giving us even the breakdown of those communities. They are very well explained there. Examples are given. And that substrand, if you use a multiple and different approaches, it becomes very easy because it used to be confused the learners in the old curriculum. It used to be called people and the population, but it has been changed a little bit. So let the teacher use different teaching methods. Give also learners assignment. Infuse even the ICT, the digital component that we have talked about. And if you use all those approaches, it will be very easy to teach the learners on that substrate in grade 7, which has been developed from grade 5. Remember, it is spiral. They did a little bit of it in grade 5. Grade 7 is done East Africa. By the time they are doing it in Africa, that is in grade 7, they have already covered the East Africa, and it will be very easy even to apply the knowledge in East Africa to the people living in West Africa, even people living in South Africa. So let it be multiple. There is no one way of teaching it. But my approach is use a multiple of different methods of teaching that we have explained in the approaches, effective method in teaching social studies.
Great, thank you so much. George, your parting shot before we come to the end?
My parting shot before we come to an end is to thank everyone who has participated and specifically thank the Oxford University and specifically, Susan, you've really done a lot. This is the second presentation in less than, I think, 6 months, and it has really helped the teachers. Please keep doing the same. For my listeners, the teachers, thank you for giving me this opportunity. Let's tell a friend. Let us love social studies. Let us use the effective methods. And please kindly make sure you get the atlas that can help you to substitute whatever you're teaching. Otherwise, thank you so much. It has been wonderful presenting to you, and your questions were also very good. Where I didn't answer them very well, you can continue the interaction on Facebook or any other platform. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you, George. Any other questions not answered here, please put them through on my email, the email you're using or you used to register for the sessions. Use that email to forward any questions to you. For any questions you'd want to reach George, once you send them to me, I'll channel them to him. We'll be able to get a response. I'm just displaying on the screen, again, a reminder of how the 360 Atlas looks like, the primary one. And now we also have workbooks that are already rationalized and revised from grade 1 to 6 for all subjects, be it social studies, be it mathematics. All the revision that has happened in the curriculum design has happened not just in our course books, like the course book you see for grade 6, but also in our workbooks. Because remember, you will not get a lot of revision work in the course book. So that revision work that you're looking for, you'll get it in the workbook. So for grade 1 to 6, we have workbooks, which are called the same title as our course books. And then for grade 7, we have the revision series, which has started in grade 7, known as Revise and Assess, cutting across every subject on its own. Because KICD discouraged encyclopedia, we are not going that direction. We are only going to follow what KICD directed, that we should have individual workbooks or revision books for every subject. And that's the way we are going to look at it. And we have had this even before. And for now, we have grade 7 for revision in junior school. Grade 8 and 9 are coming. But for grade 1 to 6, you are covered. We have the workbooks available in every level. I've also shown you the map reading and photography interpretation cover of our textbook. It's also available. It will help you for those who are teaching the geography bit, or you have a challenge in teaching geography because you're teaching social studies and you are in history. So this will support you a lot. And the JS Atlas is on the screen. These titles are all available in the bookshops. Just walk into your local bookshop, ask for any of these titles. They are already available. And of course, our course books, Our Lives Today, from grade 1 to 6, and Evolving World from grade 7 to grade 9 are all available and approved by the Ministry of Education. Someone will be sharing the invite for tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll have agriculture for grade 5 and 6 so that the teachers can be assisted on how rationalization has taken place. And then on Wednesday, we will have the science training again for grade 5 and 6. If you teach any other classes outside that, and you would want to learn in these classes, and these classes, of course, will affect you whichever grade you are in, you're free to join in. We are offering these invites on our Facebook page. So if you have missed out on any invite, we're sharing it right now in the chats, but check our Facebook page, Oxford University Press, East Africa. You'll find the invites for tomorrow and for Wednesday. But on the chats, just check, you'll find an invite for tomorrow's training in agriculture at the same time. Thank you very much for joining in and for being very patient with us. I've tried our best to keep time, and we'll indeed share the slides and the certificates. Please remember the certificates are for those who joined the webinar. Don't just register and not join in. It's a certificate of participation, so you must have attended the webinar. You'll be able to get the certificate emailed to you, and we'll also email to you these slides so that at your own time you can peruse through them and enjoy the same thing we've enjoyed here. Thank you very much for joining in. See you again tomorrow at the same time, same place. And check out the recordings also on our Facebook page, Oxford University Press, East Africa. See you again tomorrow. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you, George. Well, it was a wonderful presentation. We have enjoyed ourselves.
Thank you so much, Susan. I wish you well.
Waherini, thank you.
Oh, okay.